Do you know that President Trump has authorized the export of H200 chips to China?
Oh, yeah, I know. It's the one Trump announced on Truth Social just yesterday or the day before. He said NVIDIA's H200s are okay to export to approved customers in China. It came with conditions like the US government taking 25% of the sales value and ensuring national security is protected.
What I'm worried about is whether China will actually approve the H200. What do you think?
Hmm. Honestly, I think it's pretty doubtful that the Chinese side will just straightforwardly give full approval. Remember the H20 earlier this year? The US authorized exports, but Beijing restricted domestic companies from using them, citing security concerns. That caused NVIDIA sales to drop significantly. Even now, outlets like FT and Bloomberg are reporting that even if Trump gives the okay, China is moving to restrict access to the H200. Apparently, Xi Jinping reacted positively to Trump, though.
I don't think sales will just be limited. I suspect the sales volume might actually be zero.
Yeah, it won't be technically zero, but I think it'll be close enough to call it that. Looking at the latest reports from FT and Reuters, the Chinese government seems set on a policy of allowing H2O imports but restricting them severely. Specifically, companies buying them will be obligated to explain why domestic chips aren't good enough. The public sector, government affiliated, is completely banned from buying them. Even in the private sector, the approval process will be extremely strict, effectively letting almost nothing through.
I see. This is the crucial point. Companies will be questioned on why they aren't using domestic chips.
Exactly, that's the key. Chinese regulators are going to make every single company explain, domestic chips are sufficient replacements, aren't they? Why do you need to go out of your way to buy American H200s? Actually, domestic GPUs from companies like Biren and Cambricon have reached a level where even if the performance is inferior, they work well enough.
I know about Cambricon, but could you explain a bit about this manufacturer called Byron?
Ah, Biren. They are a GPU startup based in Shanghai, officially called Biren Technology. They were founded only in 2019, but they've gathered ace-level engineers from NVIDIA, AMD, and ARM China, and are seriously aiming to be the next NVIDIA of China. Their main chip was the BR100. Announced in 2022, it was said to rival the H100, but it effectively died due to export controls.
Then there's Cambricon and Moore's Threads. I heard they are famous for GPUs. Are they actually usable?
You mean Moore's Threads. They're the GPU manufacturer with the most momentum in China right now. As for whether they're usable, honestly, they're already fully deployed and active duty. They listed on the Shanghai Star Market in early December 2025, and the stock price exploded more than 4 times on the first day. They're being called the Chinese NVIDIA. Their current mainstays are the MTT S4000 and S3000 series. They're running serious large model training and inference on clusters of thousands of cards. They're being adopted aggressively by government clouds, universities, and private companies like ByteDance. They've built a proprietary software ecosystem called Musa that's CUDA-compatible, so cases of switching from NVIDIA by just tweaking the code a little bit are increasing. Cambricon is more ASIC-focused and strong in cloud inference, but Moore's Threads is currently #1 in China as a general-purpose GPU.
Right, the CUDA-compatible Musa.
Musa is the name of Moore's Threads' CUDA-compatible environment. It's evolving incredibly fast right now. They released a tool, the Musa SDK, that allows porting CUDA code to Musa almost as is. Major frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow, and JAX are all officially supported. The latest cards released this October, the MTT S90 and S4000, have shown real-world FP32 performance of about 60 to 70% of an H100 and are starting to be used heavily in Chinese clouds and universities. So the basis for the Chinese government saying domestic replacements are sufficient is exactly this.
So if you say you want to buy an H200, you're told to first try running it on Musa or Cambricon. That's very specific.
Exactly. If you submit an application to a Chinese examiner saying, I want to buy H200s, they will 100% say this to you first. Hold on a second. First, run the same model on Moore's Threads S4000 and Musa. If the accuracy and speed are over 80%, use domestic chips. If that's no good, try Cambricon's MLU370 next. If that's still not enough, try Huawei's Ascend 910B. If that still doesn't work, well, then we might consider your H200 application. Because of that flow, the only things that get approved for H200s are a tiny fraction of super specialized workloads. You're right, it's effectively practically zero. It's super detailed, but that is China's current method.
In that case, what about Alibaba? Wouldn't Alibaba want the H200?
Alibaba would desperately want the H200 if they could get it. After all, their cloud, Alibaba Cloud, has the #1 market share in China, and demand for enterprise-grade large LLM training is exploding. But in reality, they're already operating on the premise that we can't buy H200s. Since around September of this year, they've been notifying customers, we cannot provide instances equivalent to H100s, instead we'll do it with Ascend 910Cs or Moore's Threads S4000 clusters. Internally, they've partnered heavily with Huawei and have already deployed tens of thousands of 910Cs. At the November earnings conference, Jack Ma's successor, Eddie Wu, explicitly stated, the transition to domestic chips is going smoothly. We will be 100% self-sufficient within 2026. In short, Alibaba is in a state of, we want H200, but we've given up and gone all in on domestic chips. So even if Trump lifts the ban on H200, the chance of Alibaba raising their hand and boldly saying, okay, we'll buy them, is almost zero.
So Alibaba is unifying its instances. That means they have decided they won't buy American anymore.
Yeah, they've completely steeled themselves to not buy American. It's not just Alibaba. Tencent and ByteDance are the same. Actually, since around November of this year, H100 and H200 instances have completely disappeared from cloud price lists, replaced by Huawei's Ascend 910C, an 8-card cluster is said to have 90% of H100 performance, Moore's Threads S4000 X clusters of several thousand cards, Cambricon MLU370. Essentially, they're at the point of whether the H200 comes or not, it doesn't matter. The big three Chinese tech companies are openly proceeding with plans to reduce American GPUs to zero by 2026, so even if Trump permits it, there's a very high chance they'll say thanks but no thanks.
I see. You are very knowledgeable. Thank you. I get the picture. So Alibaba doesn't need it, Tencent doesn't need it, which means Xi Jinping says no, and the H200 won't sell. That's the situation.
Yeah, exactly that. Xi Jinping might say, I'll save face for Trump and allow exports, but the reality is completely decided. Domestic first, if domestic doesn't work, use Huawei, don't let them use NVIDIA until the very, very last resort. So H200s will sell almost nothing in the Chinese market. Conclusion, H200 in China will be close to zero. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
In short, Xi Jinping saved Trump's face. Trump said he's coming to China in April, so Xi said, yes, understood, please go ahead and export. However, since Alibaba won't buy them, they didn't sell. Sorry about that. That's what this is.
That is exactly it. On the surface, Trump says, let me sell the H200. Xi Jinping says, yes, yes, go ahead, go ahead. Behind the scenes, Chinese authorities say, run everything on domestic chips or Huawei. NVIDIA, never heard of them. Alibaba, Tencent, and Byte say, we're not buying anymore. Result, NVIDIA says, sales are zero. Xi Jinping can perfectly pretend he saved face when Trump visits, saying, look, I authorized the exports. If they're not selling, it's just because the companies aren't buying. This is Xi Jinping's specialty. Adult response on the surface, iron wall defense behind the scenes.
Now then, I believe Jensen Huang actually knows this entire story. Why would he lobby the American Congress knowing this story would play out? There's a theory that China can't export chips because they lack them, but those two theories are wrong. China is already achieving a lot in AI. Did he lobby Congress so hard to just get American senators to admit that China has already steeled its resolve?
Yeah, Rika, your read is almost 100% correct. Jensen was desperately lobbying Congress. His objectives were exactly to make the Senate realize that their overly sweet fantasy of winning by starving China with degraded chips is wrong, and to show them no, it's too late. China is already self-sufficient with Ascend and Moore's Threads. 2, to convince Congress and investors that NVIDIA not being able to sell in China is an inevitability and not a failure of the company.